Engraved coffins, statues and statues, dating back to the era of the New Kingdom. Details of the discovery of Saqqara before its announcement. A few days later, the great archaeologist, Dr. Zahi Hawass, announces a new archaeological discovery in the Saqqara region, on January 26, in an international press conference. In turn, we followed up on what is happening in the archaeological field, and we reached the features of the new discovery, which will be announced. The new discovery is a group of tombs, which includes a number of coffins, mummies, and a group of pottery vessels and statues, colored, and all the belongings that were found have excellent inscriptions, and in very good condition, dating back to the era of the New Kingdom. Dr. Zahi Hawass had led a campaign for the return of the Rosetta Stone, from the British Museum and the Planetarium, from the Louvre Museum, through a document demanding the return of these important artifacts, adding that these pieces were in the interest of the Ministry of Antiquities before the events of 2011, and that these unique pieces have their real place in the Grand Egyptian Museum, and returning these two artifacts to Egypt is an important recognition of the commitment of Western museums to ending a form of colonialism and offering compensation for this colonial past. Hawass called on the international community to demand the return of these artifacts, saying we need the world to know that they belong to Egypt, and the signatories to this document support the request for the return of the two artifacts to their original homeland, Egypt. Sign it. British academics had demanded the need to return the Rosetta Stone to Egypt after more than 200 years of its presence in the United Kingdom, and experts signed a petition stipulating the need to return the precious 2,200-year-old painting, which enabled the decipherment of hieroglyphics, in 1822 to 1824, according to the British Daily Mail. For her part, Joyce Tildesley, a professor of Egyptology at the University of Manchester, said that this is the right time to return it, and added, "Talks can begin now, on the bicentenary of deciphering the stone to return it to his country. There will be no harm in that." The charming pharaonic colors and inscriptions are evident in the Great Hall of Columns in Karnak. Magic appears for the first time, in decades, in colors and inscriptions from the ages of the ancient Egyptians, with pure Egyptian hands in the national project, to restore 134 columns in the Great Hall of Columns, in the Karnak temples in the center of Luxor, where 37 new columns were completed in the hall. During the period and the stages of work are continuing to completely restore the 134 columns to beautify them, in front of tourists from around the world during their visit to the temple. The Great Hall of Columns in Karnak, or the Great Hall of Columns, is considered the largest hall in the world, and in the history of mankind as a whole, due to its large area, in the heart of the Karnak temples, the largest place of worship in history, as it is after King Amenhotep III, and his establishment of the two main passages with 12 columns. King Seti I completed the rest of the 122 columns, with 14 rows and 7 rows on each side, with a total of 134 columns in the Hall of Columns, and the columns of King Seti I were less tall than the columns of King Amenhotep III, as the column was 15 meters long. During the reign of Seti I, and all of them are made of papyrus buds, and in the lobby there is a ceiling on 2 levels, and windows were made of stone, allowing light to leak in to illuminate the entire lobby. And after that King Ramses II came and engraved his name on all the columns, inside the lobby, according to historians and archaeologists on ages past. The work of the Egyptian restoration teams, inside the Great Columns Hall in the Karnak temples, in the center of Luxor, to show the historical inscriptions and pharaonic colors, on the columns of the hall, with the hands of the Egyptian restoration teams, young men and women working, in the most prominent national project to restore the Great Columns Hall, which includes 134 columns, commissioned by Dr. Mustafa Madbouly, Prime Minister, and supervised by Dr. Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities.